Hello, everyone at home listening to this. Okay. I'm going to read from, it'll be on your screen. This is Matthew chapter 10 from verse 32. I'm going to give you some background information about, we're going to look at the story of Bartimaeus, which you probably have heard a heap of times, but I just had to write 2,000 words and use 15 different references about this thing, so I should know a little bit more than I did before I wrote this thing. So let's have a little look at this. They were on their way up to Jerusalem with Jesus, leading the way, and the disciples were astonished, while those who followed were afraid. Again, he took the 12 aside and he told them what was going to happen to him. "We're going up to Jerusalem," he said, "and the Son of Man will be delivered over to the chief priests and the teachers of the law. They will condemn him to death and will hand him over to the Gentiles, who will mock him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. 3 days later he will rise." And James and John, the sons of Zebedee, came to him. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do for us whatever we ask." That's a great way to put it, isn't it? "What do you want me to do for you?" he asked. They replied, "Let one of us sit at your right and the other at your left in your glory." "You don't know what you're asking," Jesus said. "Can you drink the cup I drink, or be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with?" "We can," they answered. Jesus said to them, "You will drink the cup I drink and be baptized with the baptism I'm baptized with. But to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared." When the 10 heard about this, the other guys, the disciples that is, they became indignant with James and John. Jesus called them together and said, "You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." Then they came to Jericho. As Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he cried out and began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man, "Cheer up, on your feet, he's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" asked Jesus. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." Immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus along the road. Isn't that cool? You can read that again and again, but that last verse, 52, he immediately received his sight and followed him. That is an amazing story. Giving you that little bit of background, Jesus is the last few verses of Matthew. He's on his way to Jerusalem. There's a passage in there in one of those chapters just before now, when Jesus says, "Right, we're off to Jerusalem," and the disciples go, "We just came from there earlier and they almost killed you. Why are you going back?" And the rest of the story, they're slowly getting the picture, but not really getting the idea, that Jesus is going there to die. And the last few verses is that pilgrimage. You always hear that word, the pilgrimage or the journey we're on. This was a real journey, and he knew the whole time when he got there, it was the end, not just of his ministry, but of his life for that brief period anyway. He was heading towards a really tough thing. And all the while along the way, Mark, we got to remember, Mark was one of these disciples. John Mark, we believe, wrote this. He's painting a picture of Jesus and using these stories They're not always necessarily in chronological order, although these probably few here are, because it shows he was in this town, then this town, he's heading towards Jerusalem. Jericho is about 15, 20 kilometres, miles out of Jerusalem. So he's heading there, and he's slowly showing them and showing us as we read this gospel, and showing the original readers of this gospel, which we believe were probably the Roman Christians in the first century, as Mark wrote it for, is to giving them an idea of what does it really mean to follow Jesus, and who is Jesus, and what kind of life is it to live a life under him. We've just, in the part before, Jesus was known to be, or people were looking for years, and even throughout the Old Testament, they were looking for who was going to be the Messiah. And the Messiah was going to be someone who came with a big stick to perhaps slaughter all the Romans, or certainly put them back in their place, and put Israel back on top. The temple be the main hub of the town. The religious leaders would have been in control of the whole joint. And this is what the Messiah was supposed to do. And there's promises in the Old Testament. 2 Samuel says there'll be someone from the throne of David, or the line of David, who's going to be the king, and he's going to put everything right. And this is what they're looking for. And this is why James and John, Zebedee's lads, said, can you make us your, offsiders? One of us can sit this side and one can sit that side. Because they're picturing him being this militant leader and sitting in the temple and ruling it as it's in their mind. This is who Jesus is going to be. They're heading to Jerusalem. Oh, this is going to be awesome. But then he gives this idea. I'm going there. He says it as plain as day, and they still don't get it. I'm going there. I'm going to be handed over to the evil people, and they're going to kill me. Immediately after, they're like, I don't understand what that means, but can we sit next here? Can we be part of this? It's going to be awesome. They just have no idea. It's really quite a strange thing going on in their minds. There's a large crowd walking with them, because this was the weekend of the Passover, the once a year, the big feast that the Jews celebrated, remembering, what the Passover is about Moses, when the angel of death passed over and wiped out the Egyptian firstborn, and all the miracles and the escape from slavery. I don't know what slavery is, but that is what they're celebrating once a year. So this is a pilgrimage for all the people. There's a heap of people travelling with him. Along the way, these things are happening. The Passover, where the ultimate sacrifice was about to be made, and that was going to be Jesus, and they had no idea. This was that weekend coming up real quick. So they're running out of time without realising it. If they don't get what Jesus is about now, they've only got a couple of days left, this 15-mile journey, and then it's all on. And they're probably going to miss the boat if they haven't got it already, what he's learnt teaching them. So Bartimaeus is a fine example, in Mark's opinion, of someone who has faith and becomes a disciple of Jesus. One of the things I learned in my study with the culture of this time, and I guess it even happens a little bit at even now, when we see someone who's a bit deformed or disabled or has some physical impairment, blindness is one of those. You kind of think, that person's blind. I wonder if they're all there. I wonder if their mind's a little bit slow as well. And I wonder if they, your theology doesn't really allow for it, but in this age it really did. They must have done something really bad to become blind. Or I wonder if their parents did something wrong. It's actually a question asked of Jesus. Who sinned for this person to be blind? It's another guy earlier in the gospel. So there's an idea if there's something wrong with your body, and particularly with blindness, they had a stigma. And this person was not just blind, but he was also perhaps morally blind and spiritually blind and bankrupt and forced to beg on the streets is the most undignified thing. So they're poor, they're hungry, they probably had something else wrong with their body. They became less than a second-class citizen. And this is what the people viewed beggars like Bartimaeus, particularly blind ones. They thought, well, this guy obviously has no idea. He's blind, he can't see what's going on around him. He obviously doesn't know God, because that just kind of goes with the whole thing. His mind's probably not even right, so maybe we'll flick him a few coins and just keep going. So there's a real, I guess, contrast in the person of Jesus, this rabbi with people. Rabbi means teacher, and people are following him, and he's up there on this pedestal. But all the time, he dismisses that idea of himself being put up on a pedestal, and even the way he explains he's going to be a suffering servant is the way he does that as well. But he stops. The people have been saying, oh, shut up, you old blind coot. You're interrupting. This is an important man coming through here. You should be seen and not heard, and you can't see, so just be quiet. But who does Jesus stop for? He stops, and using his authority, he says, wait, call him. All of a sudden, the people that are trying to shut him up go, hey, whoa, this is exciting. And they turn and say, mate, get up. This is your lucky day. Come, he wants to talk to you. The stigma of this person who is basically the scum of the earth and has no idea about life or its meaning or any of this, Jesus just wipes totally away. And you notice the question he asks. I'm not sure if it's up there. If you want to go back one maybe. What does he ask? What do you want me to do for you? Where have you heard that before? That's right. In only a few verses earlier, he asked the exact same question to James and John. What do you want me to do for you? What did they ask for? They want power. They want prestige. They want to be up there when it's all on. They want to be the important people to rule over everyone. They want to be all those things that everyone wants to be. You want to be important. You want to be famous. You want to be powerful. You want to be rich. You want to be looked up to, respected, all these things. And Jesus was quite disappointed with that response. He said, you really have no idea what you're asking. You have no idea what's ahead of us. And even if I could give you that request, I probably wouldn't. But I can't, because when I'm sitting on my throne, it's not going to look anything like this. And I'm pretty sure there's just some other guys that'll fit that bill. Probably because you have no idea what you're asking. You're not fit to be in that position. But when Jesus asked, what can I do for you, to Bartimaeus, what does he ask for? What could he have asked for? He's sitting, picture this, he's sitting on the side of the road, he has a cloak, he's sitting cross-legged, his cloak goes out over his legs and pans out in front of him on the ground to catch the coins, copper coins, silver coin if he's lucky, to bundle up, and that's how he collects his money so he can go and buy some bread or whatever. He could have asked, oh, Lord, give me some money so I can buy some food. He could have said, oh, make me someone that people will respect. Teach me something that, give me some knowledge so that I can show those guys that I do have a brain. Or instead of asking things that would build him up, Bartimaeus answered, Rabbi or Rabboni, which the Jewish term, when I looked it up, was not a term used by a person very often at all, in fact ever. In Jewish literature, this term was used in addressing God through prayer. It's a teaching, but it's also a really highly elevated name of what you would call someone. You wouldn't just call anyone this. Bartimaeus knew somehow, even though his eyes were blind, he knew with his spiritual eyes that who he was speaking to was more than just a person, more than just a teacher, more than just a religious leader or someone who knew a lot or was famous. He said, Rabbi, I want to see. And as the more I looked into the response of Bartimaeus, you could kind of get this thing that physical seeing was only half what he was asking about. Because he recognized that Jesus was the Messiah. Because what did he call him out as? He didn't say, Jesus, you cool fella. Jesus, you popular bloke. Jesus, you who came from such and such. He said, Jesus, Son of David, the term used for the Messiah who was to come. He knew it was him. How did he know it was him? I have no idea. He'd never travelled with him. As far as I know, he was sitting beside the road that he always sat next to. Something within him revealed to him that this was the one we were waiting for. And this was the one that would not just lord it over people. And he also knew that he could reveal to Bartimaeus something deeper, a sight of spiritual nature and a physical nature. He recognized that Jesus had the power to heal, and I have no idea how he knew that. But the irony of the way Mark describes this story and uses this story of showing who Jesus was, it's showing again that it's these guys on the side of the road who can't even see to save themselves that actually see. And the disciples that have walked with Jesus for 3 years, it's coming to an end. This is the last week they're with him, still have not got a clue of who he is and do not have a clue of what he's been telling them for the last 3 years. They're still trying to clamber over each other to get to the top. I'm the most important. The last week of his mission, he's still saying, look, if you want to be the greatest, you could be a servant of everyone else. They're like, yeah, whatever. That's weird. Bartimaeus got it. The irony is that the blind man can see more than those that have good eyes. He teaches them that greatness is found in service and not status and wealth. The fact that Jesus takes time for this guy is also a really significant thing. Like the Good Samaritan, you see the Jewish leaders wander straight past. They don't want to know this guy. He's unclean. He's got germs. They're in their nice robes. I'm too busy anyway. The stuff I'm doing is super important. It's God stuff. It's about the temple. Jesus stops for these kind of people. And again, all the way through the gospel, he has time for the people that you're not supposed to have time for. You're not supposed to be in the same room as a prostitute. You're not supposed to have anything to do with a tax collector who is basically a thief, but he's allowed to be because no one can stop him because that's his job. You're not supposed to mingle with people that drink too much wine and eat too much food. But where do we find Jesus? That's where he is. And the teaching that comes through, these guys get first. And the ones that are with him and think they're all good, think they're all that, or whatever, how they say it in the shows, they still don't get it. This is the last week of his ministry. He's heading to Jerusalem where he would give his life. The ultimate embodiment of what he's talking about is about to take place. They're putting him up on a pedestal. They're saying, oh, this is really must be the Son of David. This must be the Messiah. He's just healed this guy by talking to him. He didn't even touch this guy. The first blind man, he spat on the ground, rubbed mud in his eyes. That's pretty cool. This time he didn't even do that. Didn't touch Bartimaeus. But he's heading towards the end of his mission, where he is going to sacrifice himself so that others could be free. So the question to ask, because this is about us, not just about Jesus, it's about Jesus, but we need to learn from this and figure out what is it about us. What do you sacrifice so that others may be built up? Or do you ever take time for someone that society would turn a blind eye to? We read these stories and think, wow, it's great that we don't really have beggars here. We don't really have this contrast of rich and poor so much that it's so obvious when we walk down the street. But in some way, shape or form, this applies to us because perhaps your neighbour is someone that if you had the choice, you really wouldn't have anything to do with. However, you know deep down inside that if Jesus was here, he would know that person by name. He would know their kids. He would know their situation. He would know exactly what they're going through, and he would take the time to help in that situation. I'm finding myself more and more, I guess, in turmoil of figuring out what am I supposed to do living in Glasshouse. On Tuesday night we watched a movie called Machine Gun Preacher. It's been around a little while now. Some of you probably heard of it. It's been in cinemas, and I was able to buy the DVD if you want to borrow it. It's not a DVD you'd show in church. It's not a DVD I'd recommend to everyone. It's quite full on swearing and full on drug use of this guy who's a biker but then comes to faith. Finds himself asking the same question: how can I justify living here? He cleans his life up. He goes into business, in construction business. And Sam Shield, as his name is, has a missionary come to church and talk about what's going on in Uganda with the orphanage. He says, maybe I could go over and help him build for a bit. And while he's there, he keeps hearing about Sudan to the north. It's like a war going on up there. He says he wants someone to go show him. So he goes and has a look. And while he's there, the first days he is there, he sees kids killed in warfare. He sees the rebels cutting the lips off a woman for backchatting. There's all this horrible stuff going on. The ridiculous thing is that this was like 2 years ago or something, or maybe 4 or 5 years ago. But he's still there to this day. He cannot go by and live a life of luxury or even comfort knowing that he could be doing something for these kids. And he's saving hundreds of them. The way he does it is probably quite unorthodox because he's got a machine gun and he's wiping out the rebels at the same time. We could argue all day about the theology behind that. But he's doing something that he believes in. And he's prepared to get out of his comfort zone and go. He builds the orphanage and it gets burnt down. And he's on the phone to his wife at the airport. Babe, I'm coming home. It's all gone. It's all over. It's burnt to the ground. And what does she say? Phew, I can't wait to have you home. No. He says, get off your butt and build it again. What are the kids going to do? Are they going to give up? They can't give up or they're dead. They become child soldiers with all the misery that comes with that. So he goes again. Each of us have to figure out what it means to be a disciple of Christ. Bartimaeus got up from where he sat, left all he had, which was basically nothing. But maybe it was a good spot on the side of the road. It was a high traffic area. Maybe that's how he'd survived for so long. He'd had a few coins. Suddenly he receives his sight. Now that's going to be a life-changing event for a blind person. So, of course, I would have followed Jesus too, I think. However, where he's following Jesus to, I'd really love to know where he ended up. What did Bartimaeus think about what happened to following on that Friday? And that, was he around Saturday, Sunday, after Jesus was killed? When we decide to get up from what we're doing, the life that we're used to, the way we're surviving, as comfortable or as uncomfortable perhaps as it is, when we meet Jesus and recognize who he is, a genuine meeting of who God is will have to have an impact on you. You can deny it, you can shun it, you can say, well, that's pretty awesome, but I'm really not prepared to change anything. For Bartimaeus, he's got up and he started walking. Where's he walking to? Where Jesus went to the cross. He says to the disciples, take up your cross daily and follow me. Nowhere does he say, now that you know me, you know God, things are going to be sweet, you're going to be rich, you're going to be famous, people are going to love you. In fact, it's the opposite. People are going to hate you because of me. When John and James were asking about being up there with him, he said, can you take the cup? Can you be baptized with what I'm going to be baptized with? He was talking about, can you be going where I'm going? If you really knew where I was going, you wouldn't be asking to come with me. In fact, in a few days, you're going to be scattered. You're going to be nowhere to be seen. This is what it means to follow Christ. It is hard work. And I think too often we just cruise through life saying, yeah, we know God, we got a roof over our heads, we got a good job, we live in Glasshouse. Doesn't get much better than this. And we flick the channel over when we see something horrible on TV from poverty or whatever. We go down the street, we see someone struggling that we know. We know a little bit about what's going on because we're out there. But it's too hard. I'll just keep going. I've got to pick the kids up from school. We're going to play at the park afterwards. I really can't be spending time with that person who's just going to bring me down, It's a challenge that God gives us to kick it up a notch. If you want to be great, the question is, do you want to be great? Maybe that's not the question. Maybe the question is, do you want to be great in man's eyes or God's eyes? And unfortunately, we think greatness here in this society is the biggest house, the nicest car, all these things. The silly thing is, if we become great in God's eyes, slowly as people recognize this light that we've been singing about, the light that will come through our lives, we will become great in people's eyes as we help others, as we serve. But that's not what it's about. I would have shared with you before that God gave a message, in fact, to Melissa that said, because I was struggling with this. Just the other night the other day, there was a meeting here with parliamentarians, the Liberal Party. Andrew Powell is someone I really get on well with. He's a state member for Parliament. And he's a Christian, goes to church up near Palmwoods. And when I'm mixing with these kind of guys, it's like, this is really exciting. I get to sit with him, I get to have lunch with him, we get to talk about what goes on in Canberra, we get to talk about our community, we get to think, what do we want to change about this place? And I'm rubbing shoulders with people that are, I guess, in society that are kind of up there. Used to be with Peter Slipper. I haven't seen him around a bit much lately. But even the council, I'm not even sure who's in. Has it been decided properly yet? Whether it's Rick or Bob. But there's opportunities that I have to mix with these guys. And one day I was struggling thinking, God, I'm reading this gospel. I'm reading that you say if I want to be great, I need to be the least. I need to serve everyone. I need to get down and dirty and spend time with the people that in everyone else's eyes are nobody. What do I do? Because I also see the benefits of working with the community, with, working with counsellors and all that. And you've given me an opportunity to do that. What do I do? The word God gave Melissa while she was journaling, which I'll probably share with you, forgive me if I've said this, but it said greatness. No, sorry, it didn't say that. It said, you are destined for greatness. And if I had to stop there, I would have went, sweet. That would be excellent. But then if there was after that, it said, however, or the but. Greatness is not the goal, and greatness is not the reward. I am the goal. I am the reward. This is God speaking. And maybe it was even, as I get goosebumps thinking about that, because when God talks about himself, he says, I am. There is no one else. You can't put anything above me. I am because I am because I am. You can't argue with me. Can the clay pot say, you didn't make me to the potter? You got nothing on me. I'm God. But I have called you to something special. But the special thing that you need to look forward to is that I have called you to something special. I have called you. I have desire to be with you. Now, the benefits of serving God may come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And for me, one of the great things of being a pastor is I get to mingle with people that I wouldn't normally have a chance to. I get to go to functions. This week coming up is the annual RSL luncheon. They lay out food which is like a massive banquet, and all I got to do is say grace. I mean, how easy is that? And I get in there for free. I think other people pay for or whatever, but it's brilliant. However, if that's my motivation for being with the RSL, then I've lost it. I've become James and John. That's so good. I'm getting famous. I'm getting this and that. You've lost it as immediately as you start thinking that. There's another passage that Jesus says when the 70, I can't remember if it's the 12 or the 72, the disciples come back and they were healing people themselves. They saw this and that. The blind eyes were open. People were sick or made better. And Jesus said, I saw Satan fall like lightning. Like, and you guys really did nail it out there. Good on yous. But does he build them up and say, "This, you guys rock, you're the best," whatever? He says, don't celebrate that too much, because don't let it go to your head. Celebrate the fact that your names are written in the book of life. That is the goal. That is the reward. All this stuff, it just kind of comes with the deal. So if Jesus asked us the question, what would you want me to do for you? If he's standing right in front of you, what would you ask for? Oh, God, I really love a pay rise. Then maybe I could meet my, could pay off this car, pay off this house. God, I'd really love for this to happen. I'd really love to find my dream wife or husband. Or think of the things Bartimaeus could have asked for. Imagine the lonely life he was living. Wouldn't have probably had a wife or a family, all that kind of stuff because of his situation. Yet he said, I just want to see. If Jesus asks you, what can I do for you? And you answer with, God, I want to see you. He will say, good. Let's do it. Let's go forward from here. Pick up your mat. Get up. Leave what you thought you had going on, as good as it may have been. Let's go for a walk to Jerusalem. It's going to be a tough road, and it may well end up in your death. But it's going to be worth every minute of it. These different things happen in life that open your eyes to these questions of, am I doing enough? Am I doing too much of one thing that's just ruining it for everything else? Melissa and I had a tough conversation, I think yesterday. I'd finished this assignment and said, I'd really like to go and meet with such and such or give out the hamper or whatever. And she pulled me up and said, why don't you want to just be with your family? You've just worked your guts out on this thing, and it seems like you want to be with everyone else rather than us. These conversations are tough to have, and you got to decide what's right and wrong for you. How much time you spend with your family, how much time but are you spending any time for others? And sometimes you can go too far. You're spending too much time serving others because you want to be recognised as someone that's doing these things. I don't really know if there's a right or wrong answer, and it's probably different for each one of us in here, but as we come together as a church, I know there is another level we can kick this up to. We've got a pretty good name in the place. But I wonder if a couple of key members of this church would up and leave tomorrow, would it devastate the church? In fact, be scattered? Or would it make us stronger because we recognise the void that was there? Are we each doing our little part? Are we each, and it's not just serving within the church, it's getting out and knowing your neighbours. Unfortunately, I haven't had anyone come to me and say, I know where we can give the hamper out. I would love that. I would love there to be too many options of where to give the hamper out. I would love there to be too many options of where we're going to do the next backyard blitz. But I know for some reason it's not really working like that. And I don't want today to be a lecture, because it's just, we need to keep having this conversation. God, what do you want us to do? And what is our motive behind doing it? So as you read the final chapters of these Gospels, looking at particularly at Mark, he's writing for a group of people that are in a shocking situation under the Roman rule in the first century. It's after the temple's been destroyed in 70 AD, and there's persecution, these Christians being killed for their faith. We have no idea what it's like to live like that. This is what Mark wrote this Gospel for, particularly with these guys in mind. So if we read that with these guys in mind and then put ourselves into that scenario, what are we doing? Are we living the servant type of life? Or are we just cruising like everybody else? I'm going to finish a little bit early tonight, and perhaps we can just have a bit of prayer. I'll play another song. But like I said, there's no right or wrong answers with this that I can tell you. I can't say, Sandy, you need to spend so many hours doing that. I know exactly the person that God wants you to go to meet tomorrow. You need to do that. You need to give so much of your income to this foundation. You need to give even more than that to our New Guinea thing. I can't do that. I don't know if that's right for her or not. And it's not even easy to understand if it's right for us or not. What is the figure? And God doesn't give it to us so easy. He wants us to keep asking him, what do you want me to do for you? Well, I just want to see more of you. Slowly these things will be revealed. Let's pray together that this will be the beginning of a new stage of us hearing from God.